Before we get started, I'd like to point out these interviews are normally for us to quickly approve standard applicants to the bar. However, Mr. Ross is no standard applicant. Therefore, we will convene for as long as it takes before ruling on his application. Now.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Last winter, Mr. Ross pled guilty to defrauding the citizens of New York. Therefore, I propose we reject his application right now, because Mr. Ross is a felon, and the New York bar does not accept felons.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to the new board member, you do. Not only does the bar accept felons, but years ago, this very committee admitted Neil Weisner, a man who spent years in prison for attempted murder. Now, Ms. Gibbs may think my crime is worse than attempted murder, but I don't think it's worth throwing away 140 years of precedent by not even allowing me to make my case. I guess what I'm saying is, not only do I admit what I did, but I regret it with every fiber of my being. And I'd like to apologize to my clients, my former colleagues, and finally to the fraternity of men and women that I have wanted to be a member of since I was a child.
Well, that was a moving statement. I just have one question. If you regret what you did so much, why weren't you willing to serve your full sentence?
I wasn't unwilling. I was offered a deal to help convict a known criminal, and I took it.
You were offered a deal to get out early, and you took it.
I protected an innocent man.
What you did was insinuate yourself into your roommate's life, gain his trust, and pretend to be his friend. True or false?
You're taking it out of context.
The context is you portrayed yourself as one thing when really you were another, which is what you did the entire time you pretended to be an attorney, and what I believe you are doing to this body right now.
Mr. Chairman, if she's going to impugn his character while he's speaking, then he's entitled to let someone else speak for him.
This isn't a trial. We don't allow character witnesses here.
Actually, you do. Article 4, 16A. Applicants are allowed a witness as a rebuttal for an accusation leveled by a committee member.
That article hasn't been cited in 30 years.
Maybe that's because no applicant has ever had to stand before the person who put them away.
You make a point. We'll pick this up first thing in the morning with your witness. Thank you.
That was exactly what I needed. If you hadn't done that...
I know, but right now I'm more concerned with the fact that she's turning them against you.
Which means even after Harvey kicks her off, Seidel's job is going to be that much harder. We only have one shot at having someone speak for me.
Mike, come on. We gotta get back to the office and start going through everyone it could be. We'll make a list of pros and cons.
Rachel, I know who it is.
When I first met Mike Ross, I thought he was like every other criminal I work with. An entitled fraud who spent his life cutting corners. But I'm here to tell you, he went in prison one man and he walked out another. And in my professional opinion, he has the integrity to serve his community as a lawyer.
Well, I don't doubt your sincerity, Mr. Rowe. Just because he was able to fool you doesn't mean he's going to be able to fool this board.
It's Dr. Rowe. And I'm glad you were the one who responded to my statement.
And why is that?
Because you tried to paint a false picture of his release, and I'm here to set the record straight.
The record is straight, and you're not qualified to talk about the deal that he made.
No, we're gonna hear this.
Thank you. It's true, Mr. Ross entered into an early release agreement, but it's also true that he stayed in longer than he had to keep his cellmate safe. And while he was there, he risked his own life to prevent a violent man from falsely obtaining parole.
And for all we know, he did that for self-serving reasons.
And for all I know, that's what you're doing right now.
You're out of line. I'm not the one under examination here.
Neither am I. I'm a prison psychologist, and in my experience, self-serving men do not risk their lives to help people.
I don't call defrauding your fellow man helping people, and I certainly don't call it having integrity.
With all due respect, ma'am, I'm done wasting my breath on you. Because the purpose of this hearing was to determine if Mike Ross had reformed, but you don't seem to be interested in that because you've already made your mind up.
Maybe I have.
Then maybe you shouldn't be on this committee. Because as I said, in my professional opinion, the world could use a lawyer like Mike Ross. And if you're looking for my personal opinion, he has more integrity in his little finger than you have in your whole body.
Mr. Ross, we are prepared to hear your final statement.
Before we do, I have one last question. Mr. Ross, you say you're a changed man and you care about the truth, but I want to know if you're capable of telling the truth. So I'm going to ask you a question, And I suggest that you consider your answer very carefully, because as far as I'm concerned, your answer will determine whether or not you become a lawyer. During your time at Pearson Specter Lit, did anyone there have knowledge of the fact that you were a fraud? Mr. Ross, did anyone else know?
I knew. And if you're looking for a scalp, you can have mine. But I was under the impression that this hearing was not about my old firm, but whether or not Mr. Ross should be a lawyer. I say he should.
It doesn't matter what you say. He's already had someone testify for him.
I'm not here to talk about him. I'm here to talk about someone else.
Someone else has nothing to do with
I'd like
this.
to hear this.
15 years ago, a young woman was arrested for illegally obtaining prescription drugs. Turns out she had chronic pain and didn't want to drop out of med school, possibly never to return. So she stole a couple of prescription pads from the hospital where she was interning. A crime with a mandatory sentence of 7 years. But instead of throwing the book at her, the prosecuting attorney showed mercy. Had the charges knocked down to a misdemeanor, recommended probation, and sealed the records.
That's a touching story, but I don't see what a random attorney has to do with these proceedings.
She's not talking about a random attorney. She's talking about me. Just because I showed compassion once doesn't mean he deserves it now.
Maybe he doesn't. But that young woman is now an ER doctor. She saves lives. And the world's a better place because you saved hers.
Thank you, Miss Pearson. Mr. Ross.
I don't think I can add anything to that. I've made my case. I leave the choice to you.
Then this hearing has concluded. We will deliberate and let you know our decision by day's end. Thank you.
So what do we do now?
They said they would let us know by the end of the day. So we wait.
Well, it is the end of the day, which means...
Doesn't mean anything, Louis. Whatever's going on in there, Seidel's gonna fight like hell.
It's not gonna make a difference. She's never gonna change her mind.
I think she will.
What do you mean?
I mean, that story wasn't any old story, and that woman wasn't really a woman, it was a man named Joseph O'Neill. And it was Walter Sampson's godson.
So she did call in a favor.
Yeah, she did.
Then we need to get her kicked off that board.
No, Harvey, we don't. Because I didn't fly all the way down here to strong-arm that woman. And I know the story of the wind and the sun.
What the hell are you talking about?
She's talking about Aesop's fable, which basically says that if you want a man to take off his coat, you don't blow it off. You make him feel warm and he'll take it off on his own.
That's not a strategy, it's a prayer.
Louis, I already admitted that I knew about Mike, and I reminded her of her own compassion. That's the best we're going to do.
You know they could disbar you for that.
In New York, they might. In Chicago, nobody's gonna care.
Thank you, Jessica.
Don't thank me. Thank Harvey. He's the one that called me.
Seidel. Hello. I'll tell him. Thanks for calling. You're in.
Oh my God, it happened.
I'm gonna go get us some champagne.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for flying in.
I wouldn't miss this for the world.